What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video. In this one, it's team selection time ahead of game week 11. There's some pretty key decisions to make this week because whatever you do this week obviously always has a knock-on for next week. But in particular, this week I think is big because of the Spurs players, because of Conte, who I may or may not have mentioned a few times in this week's videos. Before that, I'm going to take you through how I did in game week 10. Spoiler alert, it was an absolute shocker. The red arrows continue, but we'll talk about it anyway because we're going to be here every single week for the rest of the season. So give it a like if you enjoy it, hit subscribe if you're new, and let's jump into it. Okay, there's not really a good way of sugarcoating it. Game week 10 was bad. I would go as far as to say it was awful. I know there's some of you out there that have probably had a worse week than me, but not that many because I had a game week rank of nearly 5 million out of 8.5 million players. So it was poor. I didn't quite fall out of the top 100k yet. So as much as I've said a few times over the last few weeks, I mean, 88k or 89k pretty much after game week 10 is probably not that bad. What I would say is I kept comparing earlier ranks this season to last season, and we are getting to the point now where I started really getting ahead last year. So I need to kind of stop the rot, right? That was not a good week. 40 points with a 4-point hit. The hit did not work out either. Azpilicueta to Chilwell, Rafinha to Foden. Essentially, I worked out, I think whatever points Rafinha got, which was 9, I believe, that is the kind of mistake. That is the amount of mistake that it was. It was a 9-point mistake. And interestingly, if I hadn't done any moves, then I would have got Livramento off the bench, which is where the kind of 9-point mistake comes into it. I'd still have Rafinha, and I probably wouldn't be moving for Foden this week. I'd probably be making one transfer and going into next week with 2 transfers. And so that's the kind of knock-on stuff that can happen. I think with weeks like this, people like to always say it's complete bad luck. I've had bad luck all season. And other people like it's just all mistakes, all mistakes. I think there's a little bit of both. Selling Rafinha for a hit was a mistake. Forget about the outcome. It was a mistake, right? I knew he was going to start. I kept saying that on the deadline stream. He was playing Norwich. It was a mistake. But the player you bring in, playing for a team that goes down to 10 men, that is a bit unlucky, I would say. I'm not saying that Man City would have scored loads of goals because Crystal Palace played really well and they've been brilliant this season, but that is a bit unlucky. And not only did they go down to 10 men, the player that you had in your team that got the red card also gets you -3 points as well. So that was a little bit of bad luck, but the mistake was already made by taking the hit. Mbomo came off, so I played him. He came off, it was just bench, and Saka came on for the 6 points, which was quite nice. A little bit of luck this week to get Saka on. And the other mistake was not playing Ramsdale. Now, I keep weighing up in my head whether it was a mistake, but I always tell myself, don't have rotating keepers, set and forget, play them every week, don't even think about it. And I went against that because it was close, as I thought. And earlier on in the season, I did the same thing. I played Foster over Sanchez, and I kind of regretted it. Even though Sanchez didn't get a clean sheet that game, just the way the game went, Sanchez could have come away with a big score. And then even though I knew that, I then made the mistake again. So I'll probably be playing Ramsdale most weeks going forward because I just think Watford's defence just is not good enough. As good as Foster is, as much as we love him on this channel, the Watford defence gives up a lot of chances, right? So I don't think I can make that mistake again. Ramsdale was great, by the way. On another day, Leicester do score, and that doesn't look like such a big mistake, but 10 points, it does kind of hurt. That's an 8-point mistake there as well. So the goalkeeper thing, mistake. The hit for Rafinha, a mistake. Laporte, a little bit unlucky, and the fact that Foden also then played in a team with 10 men, also a bit unlucky. But yeah, Jimenez good, Saka decent. Chilwell, did nicely, right? He came in and got me 8 points, but Reece James absolutely smashed it, which just didn't help. And elsewhere, it just is what it is, right? It was an okay team. 40 points, 4-point hit. Not great. I need a green arrow this week. I do not want a red arrow going into the international break. Let's see how we're going to do it. Okay, so I've only got one free transfer because I took that hit last week. I've got no money in the bank as well. And I've got to be honest, that kind of is hindering me a little bit. As you can see on the bench, I've got Laporte, who's now red flagged. Obviously, he's going to miss this game. The other thing with that kind of red card is, okay, it's just one game. He could come back into it. And look, I think those of us that went for double Man City defence have probably been a little bit unlucky in how many clean sheets they've gotten so far, which I think is none. I don't think they've had a single one since I've owned double defence because their defence still is the best in the league. And I think over the next kind of 6 to 8 weeks, we will see them get plenty of clean sheets. But the problem is, I would say Laporte's got a good chance of losing his place now. Now, we will see the Champions League lineup tonight. My guess is that Stones will play, because Pep will basically want him to have some minutes before the Man United game of the weekend, right? And then it's anyone's guess as to who plays the next game. Could Stones now come in as kind of the first choice? Because what happened last year, Laporte got injured. I think Stones was already playing quite well, and if I remember right, had already played quite a few minutes. But he played so well that he just kept playing, even when Laporte was back. And it was only really towards maybe the middle end of the season where they started rotating a bit, but Stones was always in the kind of first choice lineup in the Champions League and stuff like that. So I am worried about it. I don't think Laporte will keep playing. And I had no money in the bank, so I can't go to Reece James either, who obviously is a big target for a lot of people. So Laporte is going to have to stay on the bench. The one thing that does mean is Livramento is finally upgraded to first bench, but I'm still probably not going to play him. I have considered playing him over Cancelo, but I think most of the time in my team I would always play the Man City defender, and I still don't rate the Southampton defence that highly. So I think once he loses the clean sheet, which he could have done against Watford, they had enough chances, then suddenly you're relying on attacking returns. And look, he is a good player, and he is a good option for our FPL teams, but I just don't think I want to play him this week. Chilwell's obviously in against Burnley at home. He didn't start in the Champions League midweek, which is good. It doesn't mean that he definitely plays this weekend. I think Alonso's played against Burnley before because of height, but let's see what happens. I'm obviously going to start him, and if he doesn't play, hopefully he doesn't come on, and Livramento will come on as well. Trent, I know suddenly now people are looking to maybe sell Trent. I've even seen kind of Trent Alexander-Arnold to Reece James. I think that's very short-term thinking. I think long-term the Liverpool defence will be fine going forward, and obviously we know how attacking Trent can be. So those three defenders that I've got starting are probably my three favourite right now. Obviously, if I had Reece James instead of one of them, it wouldn't be completely out of the question. I wouldn't be unhappy with that. Or if you wanted to play four at the back and Reece James was the fourth defender, then I'd also be fine with that as well. But because of Spurs, because of Conte, I kind of feel like I want to take a punt on Reguilon. He's almost certainly going to be the left wing back. Wing backs under Conte have done really well in the past as well. I mean, he even had Moses for Chelsea, just as I think a right wing back, and he was ridiculous. So this guy is good, and I'm hoping that Reguilon then becomes not necessarily a template player, but a player that people are going to be looking towards. So he's not coming in this week for me, but he is kind of my long-term thinking change for Laporte as it stands. But this week I don't really need to change too much. I'm definitely going to play Ramsdale over Foster. I think the defence is looking alright. Not maybe massive points, but I'm hoping I can get something after last week's dismal display. Okay, so moving on to the midfield, we'll start with Salah because there's not really much to say. Obviously, you've got no plans to sell him at any time soon whatsoever. He probably will be my captain this week. There are going to be certain times over the next few weeks where, and let's not forget, Liverpool have had a great start to the season in terms of fixtures. They haven't completely had just really easy fixtures, but they have had a lot of easy fixtures, which made it easier to captain them, including the Man United game, of course. But there are going to be a few times over the next few weeks where I think I will consider taking the armband off him. I'm not saying I definitely will, but I'll consider it. This week is one of those, because I think West Ham away is not the easiest team or ground to go to and get a high score and win. I think Liverpool will win the game, right, because they are the better team. But West Ham can defend really well. It's just that you have to have a really good player outside of that to consider taking the captaincy armband off him. As much as Saka and Mbeumo have got the fixtures, I'm just not sure I'd want to take the captain's armband off Salah. It'd really have to be for someone like Kane or Son or Fernandes or Ronaldo, someone like that who we would have looked at a lot for captaincy last year as well. So not going to remove that, I don't think. Saka, very happy to play this week against Watford at home. I know Smith Rowe keeps getting the goals. I'm hoping Saka can get the big score sometime soon. I feel like, I was going to say deserve it, but that's not true. I need it. I want to see it from Saka. And Mbeumo didn't come off the bench last week and they were losing, so that's interesting. So I wonder if his injury wasn't quite over, he hadn't quite got over it. Let's see what the manager says this week, but I'm hoping he's going to be fit, available, and going to start against Norwich at home. So I'm definitely obviously going to start him. And Foden, look, he's almost been a little bit forgotten about because a lot of us kind of not jumped the gun, but jumped on him last week after he's got such a big haul before. And now it's almost like he's been forgotten about because everyone's talking about Spurs players. But Man City have some very good fixtures coming up over the next few weeks. Not necessarily Man United away, although Man United are there to be gotten at as well. Varane could be out too. So it's not a bad game, but over the following weeks after that, good fixtures. So I don't really have a plan to get rid of him anytime soon. So midfield is looking good. Let's talk about the strikers because that's where a potential transfer comes up. But I think anyone that was kind of forced to get rid of Lukaku a couple of game weeks ago that went to Jamie Vardy, you're probably like me. You're probably quite frustrated. No points so far after he'd had such a good start to the season. For me, I was 0.1 million off getting Kane. Now, in terms of points scored, I think I've only missed out on like 2 points from not getting Kane instead of Vardy. But obviously then you'd have him ahead of this really good fixture run with a new manager, etc. So I'm still a little bit annoyed that I couldn't get him when I wanted to, but obviously there's nothing I could have done about that, and there's nothing I can do about it now, so I don't think it's worth kind of overreacting. I think Vardy against Leeds probably got to keep him, and Jimenez has been great since I got him in. I know that Hwang has done really well, and anyone that went for him has got money to spend extra than I have, but I can't really complain about Jimenez. At the time I didn't know that Hwang would be absolutely nailed on to start every week, and I'm still not sure he completely is, but it's very hard to take him out of that team. He's looked brilliant, so anyone that's got him should not be worried at all. But Jimenez has got me 5 returns over 5 games. And one of those games was I can't remember who he was playing against, Villa, I think, where he came on for like 2 minutes. So in games he started since I've owned him, he's got 5 returns in 4 games, 2 goals, 3 assists. He's been decent, and he is on penalties as well, and he could have had more points in the last game. And kind of more importantly, he looks good, right? He's, all this worry at the start of the season about his injury and coming back. Like, he looks good. He was brilliant in the last game, should have had more points. Crystal Palace away is not easy, but he has got some pretty decent fixtures coming up. So after Palace away, okay, it's a toughish game against West Ham at home, then it's Norwich away, Burnley at home, and then you kind of decide what to do with him. So I don't think it's necessarily the right time to buy him, but it depends on who you're transferring out. But in terms of keeping him, absolutely happening. The big decision is Antonio. Now, I've talked about this already on the transfer tips video. If you want to see a bit more in depth about, kind of like a neutral view about whether or not you should sell Antonio or not. Like, I will find it difficult to sell him because 1, I love the guy, and 2, I've got a lot of money wrapped up in him, and 3, you never want to force a player out, but he does have some pretty bad fixtures coming up. My main issue is I don't really want to make the decision this week because I'm not quite sure about what I'm going to do next week. And if I get rid of him this week, then it's done, right? And I've got to find the money to get him back when I need him. And as I said on the transfer tips video, I do feel like this is the week. If you're going to sell him, this is the week to do it. Because afterwards, it's Wolves away. You'd happily keep him, right? It's not the most ideal fixture, but you'd keep him. Then it's Man City away. But if you get rid of him then, it's only a couple of games until the good fixtures start again. So I really feel like if I don't sell him this week, I'm probably keeping him. The main issue for my team, right, and again, this is why I did transfer tips, kind of a neutral-ish view about Antonio versus this video, which is specifically about my team, is it all comes down to Kane versus Son. If I sell Antonio to Tony, and I do like Tony this week, because obviously he's got Norwich at home, then next week I can fund Kane, although it would take me a hit. So it'd be something like Vardy and Laporte to Reguilon and Kane. Now, Kane versus Son is very tricky because I feel like last year I definitely always preferred Kane. This year Son has looked better. Now Conte's there. He's almost certainly going to play a 3-5-2. That means Kane will be up front. He'll need a strike partner. Why would it not be Son, right? We know how good Son is as a central striker. We've seen him do it before while Kane's not out. So all of a sudden we've got a player that has played wide and done really well, who's now going to be probably more in front of goal, more often in front of goal, who we know is a great finisher. He's going to get an extra point for the goal, extra point for the clean sheet. He's also cheaper. He won't cost me any hits, and I can keep Antonio. So right now, I'm kind of leaning towards Son, but in the back of my mind, I know last year it would have been Kane. So is what's happened so far this season putting me off? And should that put me off? For some of you, the answer will be yes. For me, I'm just thinking, if Conte can't get Kane going, no one is going to get him going until he gets to go to Man City. I think he's gonna be right up for it. If he's not going to get his transfer move, if Levy's going to kind of dig his heels in and not let him go, Conte is his best chance of getting trophies at Spurs, and I think he's going to play exceptionally well. So if I was going to captain one, I think I'd still want to captain Kane. I just think he will bounce back and he will be fine. But how many times realistically am I going to take the armband off Salah? And if it's only once or twice over the next few weeks, then maybe I just get the cheaper option. Plus, if around game week 15, 16, we're going to look to offload these players to Man United players who aren't really having a huge problem scoring goals. They might not be winning games or, keeping clean sheets, but they're still scoring goals. Then if I'm going to want to jump ship anyway, do I need to really worry about having Kane? And I just don't know which side of the kind of fence, I guess, the Kane and Son fence I'm kind of falling on. But for me, like when I think about it out loud, to get Kane, either do it this week or next week. I need to sell Antonio. And if I'm going to sell Antonio for Tony, I definitely want to get the Norwich game. But do I want to do it this week? Could this team be good enough just to roll into the international break, see what happens over the break, who gets injured, and just go from there? So right now, I'm leaning to no transfer this week. And next week, it would be Vardy, who plays Chelsea, Saka, who plays Liverpool, to Tony, or Wilson possibly, but probably Tony, because I don't think I'd have enough money for Wilson, Tony and Son, for no hit. And also, I wouldn't necessarily need to deal with Laporte because I could still play 3-4-3 for one more week. And then when I do need to deal with Laporte, I will probably just go for Reguilon anyway. That's the current plan. So for now, I don't think I'm going to make a transfer, and I'm probably going to captain Salah. But let me show you the tinkering around it just to show you kind of how it works if I did want to go for Kane. Okay, let's do a little bit of tinkering just to kind of show you how the Kane song would move or would look like, and kind of what's going through my head when I'm thinking about doing it. So if I want to go for Kane, it's probably not the only way to do it, right? If I wanted to get rid of Foden or something like that, it would probably be a bit easier. But the only way that I see it, because of the fixtures coming up, is Antonio out to Tony, right? Now, I don't think over the next 4 to 5 weeks I get punished by that move. I think there is a chance that Antonio probably keeps up with him in terms of point scoring just because he's so good. But if Brentford fixtures are decent, and I would like to have double Brentford attack, Mbomo and Tony against Norwich at home, right? That could be a pretty decent score. And we know that Tony's on penalties. He's a really good price. At 6.6 million, there's not really too many better options up front, in my opinion. So we would hold that. We'd save that for Game Week 11. That would then be locked in, right? Then we move to Game Week 12. And this is where Kane becomes part of the equation, right? So Vardy would be sold to Harry Kane. Now, really quickly on Vardy, I don't think there's necessarily a rush to get rid of him because, okay, Chelsea at home's not great, but every player has a difficult fixture every now and then. Vardy then has really good ones afterwards for like another 4 game weeks. I think the first one after Chelsea is, if I just come back to this page, the first one after Chelsea is Watford at home. That ain't a bad fixture. Neither is Newcastle at home. Southampton away and Villa away are also fairly decent too. So you don't need to worry about holding Vardy, but I just see an opportunity with Spurs that I want to jump on quickly, and I was already thinking about it anyway, and Conte has obviously kind of sped that decision-making up. I'd probably bench Saka against Liverpool away, and I'd probably play not Laporte, but Laporte's replacement, and I need to make up 0.2 million, you can see here, to fund Harry Kane. So I would probably do Laporte to Reguilon, because if Conte can get Spurs playing quick enough, then I think Reguilon will become a player that a lot of us will want pretty quickly. So I'd save that team. And then after that, okay, I've taken a hit for that week, but having already looked, which I won't go into now, but already looked at kind of transfer plans after this, I don't think I'm in a rush to sell too many other players. Obviously, FPL always brings up problems, but there's not too many other moves I need to make immediately. At some point, I will have to figure out how to fund Jimenez back to Antonio, but I think that's doable, right? So that's one option, but that takes a hit. The other option is to go for Son, right, instead of Kane, and to roll the transfer this week. So to hold Antonio. Now, I don't think that holding Antonio is a bad thing, right? I've already said that. And could he get something against Liverpool at home? He possibly could. I think West Ham are a decent team. They can cause Liverpool problems. I don't think it's going to be a massive score for West Ham, but he could get something, right? And if he does get something, then I'll probably be quite happy that I held him. Bearing in mind, if I go the Son route, it also doesn't require a hit like Harry Kane does. The only disadvantage that I can see with this transfer plan is that I don't get Tony for Norwich at home, but I don't think that should dictate my Kane versus Son thoughts. I think if I want Kane, I want Kane, and if I want Son, I want Son. I don't really worry about whether or not I've got Tony this week. It would be nice. I'd rather have Tony than Antonio. I'd rather have him than Jimenez, but I don't necessarily need to make the move this week. I mean, I could do it for Vardy, but I don't think it's worth doing that when he's got Leeds away. Plus, it also means I get 2 free transfers after the international break, and who knows what could come up. So I would keep Antonio, and the thing is with Tony, I would then get him in Game Week 12 instead, and I kind of deal with the Saka and Vardy issue. Now, they're not really issues to hold on to because Saka's got Newcastle at home, I think it is, in Game Week 13, so I don't even mind if I have to play him there. And Vardy's got Chelsea at home, but after that fixture, he's then got Watford at home, Southampton away, Villa away, Newcastle at home. So even holding on to Vardy is not completely out of the question, but I do think I want to target these Spurs fixtures with Conte as well. If he hits the ground running, that could be decent points, especially when other people are going to be wary of doing it. So I would sell Vardy. This is the week I would then get Tony, right? So I'm missing Norwich at home, which is the best fixture, right? But they've still got a pretty good fixture run afterwards. Antonio's then got Wolves away. I don't really mind that too much. And Saka would be sold to Son. Now, at this moment in time, I've got a 0.2 million buffer on doing that. So I'd have to get through this week plus the international break without too many price rises or price changes, which might not be ideal, because if Son does really well against Everton before a good run of fixtures, or if Tony does really well against Norwich, which absolutely could happen, then both of those players could rise. Vardy, I'm sure, will start dropping in price. I'm not quite sure about Saka. So I might have to move early, or I might have to take a hit anyway, right? But the difference is, there is a possibility in this kind of scenario where I go for Son that I don't have to take the hit, whereas with Kane I definitely have to. And then I just save it. And then the thing is with Man United players, we all definitely want Ronaldo right now. But by game week 16, when we're going to actually make the transfer move, maybe I'll go for Fernandes instead. Over Christmas, he ain't going to miss any minutes. He's going to play kind of 80 to 90 minutes every week. He might also be on penalties as well. So I haven't completely written off going for him either, although it could be Ronaldo. And at some point, I'll work out how to fund that. And then we just move forward. Like game week 13, obviously, Son's still got really nice fixtures. This is probably the week that I sell Laporte for Reguilon. And then I probably play Reguilon instead of Chilwell at Man United at home, or instead of Antonio Man City away. And then that's kind of my transfers. Yeah, after this, there'll be other transfers to make, but there's nothing planned. And I think this team looks pretty good. So I think just because I avoid the hit, just because Son is going to play up front, I assume in a 3-5-2, he's probably where I'm swaying. Extra point for a clean sheet, extra point for a goal, just no penalties. And that is why I'm kind of I like Kane a lot. But right now, that's the transfer plan. Let me know below what you think. Do I remove Antonio for Tony and take a hit for Kane? Or do I keep Antonio for now, get Tony next week and go for Son for free? Which is the best move? Let me know below. So there we go. If you enjoyed that video, please do give it a like. Keep hitting that subscribe button now. We are well on our way to 250k, less than 3,000 subscribers needed. Thank you for all of your support. And obviously, let me know what you think about the captaincy and transfer plans from this video. Is this what you would do? I guess at least wait in a week as well. I could still make that Antonio to Tony move if I wanted to get Kane. I would just know maybe a little bit more about how Conte is going to set Spurs up. And if they do play 3-5-2, who gets more advanced from Son and Kane? Like Conte did mention in, I think it was over maybe the Euros or something, that he liked Kane dropping deep, but if he was the manager, he'd have him much closer to the in and around the box, which is where he probably should be. So what will happen with him and Son? One more week might give me a bit more to think about. Plus, obviously, international break, 2 free transfers, etc. But let me know in the comments below. Give it a like, hit that subscribe button, and I will see you again tomorrow.